Travel Adventures with Marilyn and Craig. While researching YouTube on places to travel and things to see, we found some interesting sites. But the information about those locations and what to do once you get there was always a little limited.
I love to take pictures.
And I love shooting video.
And we both love to travel.
So what could be better than to share our travel adventures on YouTube for those of you that want to learn from our experiences? Meteora Greece, one of the world's most unique and beautiful places. Meteora is known for the distinctive rock spires that shoot hundreds of feet from the valley floor, but is even more famous for the 6 Greek monasteries that are perched precariously on the tops of the peaks. Kalamanpaka is a central location for hotels, restaurants, transportation, and tour guides, and the jumping off point for the tour of the Meteora area. There's the main town, and a lot of people stay down there and can look up here at the monasteries on the hill. But you'll notice that there's one right over coming up on the left-hand side, and that's the valley below. The drive from the valley floor is an adventure in itself, with twists, turns, and curves. All right, well, we're going up the canyon where the first part of these monasteries are, and you look kind of to the left and up a little bit. Right now you'll see a tree, but right behind that tree is a monastery way up there. I think that's where we want to stop first and take a look at that one right there. The first monastery you come upon is the St. Nicholas Monastery. It's a little bit more rugged and less commercial than the others, but every bit as challenging to get to. The steps from the parking lot are steep and a little irregular, so they've made a gradual ramp that can be used. This, like the other monasteries, can only be accessed by walking up hundreds of steps. When we were there, they were restoring some of the woodwork and masonry and built an elevator for the craftsmen, but tourists were not permitted to use it. The monks built the monasteries on the peaks to attain solitude and privacy, to worship and to pray. They were also afraid of robbers and thieves. Here's the valley that we just drove up, and it's kind of winds its way up the road, and right over here is the lowest monastery in the group. It's the closest one to town. Once again, it's perched right up there on the top of a rock. They all are. The monks did not want to be bothered by anybody. So they built their monasteries where it required rope ladders and scaffolding to climb to the top. I'm sure it wasn't an easy climb for the first monk. After they were established, the monks constructed lifts to the top with hoists and pulleys, and used nets and baskets to bring up building materials, food, and eventually people from the valley below. It wasn't until many years later, and over many years, that they finally began to build stairs. As you climb the stairs through St. Nicholas Monastery, you will find a series of small rooms and chapels. Nice. Voila. Yeah. Look at this. You have to walk up here every day to go to work?
Yep.
I think.
Actually, this sir.
Oh, yeah. You don't have to. How about the elevator? You don't get to use the elevator?
Sometimes.
Okay. While photography and video is not generally restricted, there are some rooms or chapels where it is strictly forbidden and signs are posted.
Up and up.
At the top, there is a bell tower that is unique to St. Nicholas Monastery, that it can be seen and identified from miles away. There's also a commanding view of the valley below. The next monastery is the Rasonu. This is one of the monasteries that we didn't get to scale or walk up to because it was closed because of poor planning on our part. The first monks used ropes, ladders, and nets to get to the top. Today, you can climb cement stairs and cross two bridges that were made in 1930, replacing wooden bridges that were made in 1868. This monastery dates back to 1288, but it wasn't officially founded until 100 years later in 1388. Over the next several hundred years, the monastery fell in and out of disrepair and activity until 1940. During World War II and the German occupation, it was plundered. During the 1980s, it was totally renovated and today operates as a convent. After several hours of exploring the mountainous region around the monasteries, we decided to check into our hotel. Marilyn and I stayed at the Tupiani House Hotel, which was nestled in the foothills and only a short drive from all the monasteries. It's a beautiful hotel. With a large lobby, bar, and dining room for breakfast. Registration is open around the clock with very personable and English-speaking staff. They are all very knowledgeable about the area and will assist you with phone calls and arrangements. Our room was large with a comfortable bed. The restrooms are large with a combination bath and a hand wand for a shower head. It can be a little challenging adjusting the water temperature, holding the soap, and the shower head all at the same time. This would be my only complaint. Our room had a big screen TV, but there were only 2 English language news channels to watch, and none of the news seemed very good. And our unit also had a large balcony with a fabulous view of the mountains. Our breakfast was included and featured an excellent buffet that included both Greek breakfast items as well as scrambled eggs, Canadian bacon, and a variety of cereals. They gave us plenty to keep our energy levels up and going all day long. The cost of this hotel was about $130 per night. Very reasonable, I thought. We were very pleased with this hotel and would highly recommend it. The following morning, we continued up the road. We came to the fork in the road, and we took it. It was towards St. Stephen's and the Holy Trinity Monastery. The St. Stephen's Monastery is one of the most popular because it's easy to access by car and the lack of stairs to climb to the monastery. Like the other monasteries, it is built on a high rock spire, but they have built a bridge to access the monastery. There's a breathtaking view of Kalampaka, from the bridge, hundreds or maybe thousands of feet below. This monastery dates back to 1398, when a priceless treasure was given to the monastery. It is rich in history that you can research when you tour the monastery, but it is known for serving as a headquarters and a hideout of Greek fighters during the struggles with Macedonia. It was bombed in 1943 by the Axis powers, and the abbot was arrested and imprisoned. At one time, it was also a primary school and an orphanage. The courtyard is particularly beautiful and peaceful. Spend some time and enjoy the view. This is by far the easiest access monastery here. The Monastery of the Holy Trinity is probably the most well-known and popular monastery because of its starring role in the James Bond movie For Your Eyes Only with Roger Moore.
St. Cyril's, where we used to hide from the Germans. Only Tristatus would make an abandoned monastery's personal retreat. My friend, I've been studying this place for years for just such an occasion. We'll split here, huh? Your best approach will be on the right face, which is away from the building.
While hundreds of locals were used as extras for technical staff, the monks opposed shooting the film originally. Permits were issued by the Greek Ministry of Culture, and only exteriors of the monastery were ultimately filmed. The interiors were replicated and shot on nearby cliffs. The Holy Trinity is perched over 400 meters or 1,312 feet above the valley and is one of the oldest monasteries. It is currently reached via tunnel and 130 stone steps. But don't be deceived. There are a lot of steps just to get to the stone steps. It can be a climb. At one time, there were 50 monks that lived in the monastery. By the early 20th century, only 5 lived there. The grounds include a 2-acre garden at the summit. All right, well, here is the hook that they used to bring things up on. And over here is the net. So here's the net. And this is how they would pull up the supplies and the people to the top, food and supplies. And they had baskets too. I know they do. I know they did anyway. I don't know if they had it at this monastery, but they had baskets because I experienced it. Not at this monastery, though. Just gives you an idea. There's the town down there.
Selfie? No.
And that's where that's where they would drop the baskets. The monastery at Varlem was my favorite, and the one that I thought was the most beautiful. There were more things to look at. A wine barrel, the museum, gazebo, and a fantastic view. But you have to work to get to these sites because it's about 200 steps up stone stairs to get to the summit. It was founded in 1517 and dedicated in 1548. It's known for its frescoes. Every now and then, a monk sits in the garden and starts conversations with visitors. It is the second largest monastery in Meteora. If you have to visit only one monastery, this would be the one I suggest. The Great Meteora Monastery is the final one on our tour. It is actually the largest and most formal of all the monasteries. With over 50 acres of land and the most buildings perched on what is known as the Wide Rock. It sits at 613 meters or 2,011 feet above sea level. This monastery is still inhabited by about 60 monks and nuns, and they have a herd of cows. Like all the other monasteries, access to the top was designed to be difficult. In 1520, the tower, or block and tackle, with a net was built.
Of course, just like all the other monasteries, this was the area that they had the baskets or the nets that lifted up supplies up to them. Now this one actually has a gondola.
It was used to carry things, or sometimes even pilgrims, to the top. It was used until 1923.
That's where they would hoist it from us, down there.
Today, they have a cable car for monastery use. Others use the staircase of about 146 sloping and irregular stairs that lead to the monastery entrance. Marilyn and I didn't make it all the way to the top of that monastery. We started our ascent about 3:20, fully knowing that it closed at 4 p.m. About 5 minutes into our climb, we were told by somebody coming down that they had already been turned away. So we never got to go to the top and the Great Meteora Monastery.
Getting all the coverage I can.
Our short 2.5-day visit to Meteora was not disappointing. The views were spectacular, the history was rich, and the experiences will never be forgotten. If Meteora is not one of the wonders of the world, it should be. My advice? Go there if you get a chance. You won't be disappointed.